So we're gonna be calling Shannon High.
Downey, this is your team. Please meet us at Dairy Queen. We miss you, Downey. Please. Please come home, Downey.
My name is Shannon High, and I'm running to be your junior class president.
Right. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Shannon Show, the Best Military Kids podcast. We have a very exciting guest here today. As many of you know, I went to Kubasaki from 2016 to 2019. I talk about it frequently on the channel. But today we have someone who is also a former Kubasaki student, back from the 90s, and I'm very excited to talk about Kubasaki, her military brathood, and just see some of the similarities and differences. So, Jennifer, welcome to the show today.
Thank you for having me. Hi.
How are you doing?
Good. We're covered in snow right now because I'm in Chicago, but other than that, we're all good.
Yeah, I'm at Penn State, so pretty similar. Just bitter cold, snow all over the place, middle of Pennsylvania. So
yeah,
I feel you on that part.
I'm ready to go.
Yeah, how long have you been in the
nice and
area?
warm. So I moved to Chicago in '98. So I've been, this is like the longest I've ever lived, basically my entire adult life. And I moved up here to be with my now husband, because he was born and raised in Chicago. But yeah, I've been ready to move for probably a good 6 to 8 years.
Wow.
So we're just trying to figure out where now. I got him
somewhere
to
warmer,
move, so.
I assume.
Yes, he wants to go warmer. I just want to go somewhere near my family. So we have a few different options. So we're just trying to agree on that now. And then we'll be out, hopefully.
Where's your family from?
So, I mean, I'm one of 5, so we're sort of everywhere. Like my parents just moved to Southern Illinois. I have a brother down there because we were stationed at Scott Air Force Base down there for a while. And then I have a sister in Florida. And then I have a sister in Texas who works for AFIS and the corporate offices there. And then I have another sister. She she's like a gypsy. She just kind of travels around. She used to live in South Africa and Dubai, but she came back to the States and works remotely, and she kind of every few months is going from place to place. So
she's a remote gypsy?
Where we can
Wait, what?
So. Well, she works remotely. So because she can work remotely, I'm like, she's kind of like, she just, she likes to travel. So she's single, she doesn't have any kids. So she just likes to travel and she moves around. And
all right.
I mean, she can just go visit different places, stay with friends, and, because she has a lot of friends in different places. So she loves to just travel and not be stuck in one place for too long. So.
Right. And I'm assuming that's how you guys grew up, being a military family, or were you in one place for a long time? What was that like?
Oh, so my dad was in the Air Force and he was in for 30 years. And I was the 4th out of, it's a long time. So I was 4th out of 5 kids. And so he retired right before I turned 19. So just a couple months shy of my 19th birthday. But we moved every 2 to 4 years. Like the shortest place was 2 years at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, North Carolina. And then the most was Scott Air Force Base, our second time there, in Southern Illinois. So generally it was 2 to 3 years. We were at Southern Illinois twice, North Carolina once. We were at RAF Lakenheath in England for 3 years. And then we were Okinawa twice because I was born there. My sister and I were born there. We were there for 3 or 4 years. I think right before I turned 4, we moved. And then he wanted that to be his last duty station before he retired. So then we went back in 92 to 95. So,
gotcha.
Which I'm really, I feel so blessed and privileged that we were able to go back at the age that I was. So, because Okinawa is by far my favorite place. But he was actually stationed on Kadena, but they didn't have E9 housing. So we had to live on Camp Foster. And that's why I ended up at Kubasaki. So I should have gone to Kadena, but ended up at Kubasaki just
that's for the better. Come
housing
on.
In the for the Foster Towers. I don't know. It was funny because when we first moved to Okinawa, we went out Gate 2 Street of Kadena, and the first thing my dad was because I was 16 or almost 16, and he was like, "You are not to talk to any Marines. We're gonna have to live on a Marine base. No Marines." And I had never been around Marines. So. But it was fun though. It was a great experience. We were in the Foster Towers and the top floor, and we just could see everything. It was amazing.
Yeah. I'm very familiar with Camp Foster. That's funny. And the towers. Yeah, just like the view from up there, like you can see the beach. Well, the island's so small, first of all. So
Yeah,
anytime you get any elevation, you can kind of see like the ocean on both sides, it feels like. So, and Foster definitely had some great views. It's a pretty cool base. Not
it
not too
is. It
exciting,
was
but
big, and
yeah, not always like a ton going on, but I mean, not like Kadena. Kadena is huge compared to, the Marine Corps bases.
yeah.
Um, I got there when I was 14 or 15, so it was my freshman year of high school. So I mean, like basically the same as you, just kind of get in there, and those are some very important years of your life that are upcoming in a very new and strange place. So it's weird just
Yes.
having to approach that. And I don't even know if there's anything my parents could have said to prepare me, because they had never gone through anything like that either, like having to grow up and go to high school in Japan. So, I mean, there's only so much they can say or prepare you. You're like, yeah, you're gonna be going to the food court and you're gonna be surrounded by Marines. Like that's just how it is. Like you're just gonna be living in that environment, because I didn't live too much on base growing up. So it's a big
Mm.
transition just being out in the Pacific. I like you, I loved it.
Yeah, like my little, it was just me and my little sister, because my brother and my two older sisters, they
Hmm.
had graduated high school, so they stayed stateside. But my little sister and I were 3 years apart. So she went to Leicester Middle School. I think she was seventh or eighth
Right.
grade. So we were,
Hmm.
I can't remember if we left after her freshman or sophomore year, but yeah, like we generally would live on the base. And if we didn't live on base, then we lived right outside of the base.
Hmm.
So there was still like a large military community. So even like in England, we didn't live on like the base, but we lived in like Village, where it was just all military, but it was Air
Hmm.
Force. And so there there is a difference for me, at least. There was like seeing Marines versus like being on a Marine Corps base, or I guess
Yeah.
post or camp, and then being on the Air Force base. And I would go back like to Kadena once in a while, like take the bus from the
Yeah.
Camp Foster to Kadena. And then once I got my driver's license, we'd rent a car or something and I could drive around there. But there was a difference, but it was interesting. And I'm glad we
Hmm.
did it. And my parents, like my mom's family is all in Okinawa, because she's from Okinawa. So
Wow.
it wasn't, I don't think it was like that difficult for us.
Yeah.
It was difficult, but at the same time, not too much, because it was fun to see our family again. And
Hmm.
we hadn't seen them since, I was little, and just acclimating to the base and, to a new school. It wasn't anything too different. And to be honest, I was ready to leave Scott Air Force Base. Like I said, we had
Yeah.
been there for 4 years, and I felt like that was 1 year too much for me,
Hmm.
because I was so used to going every 2 or 3 years. And so that fourth year, I was just like, okay, when are we gonna go? Like,
Yeah.
it's getting
Exactly.
time. We need to go somewhere. I'm ready to go. Let's do something new. Let's
Hmm.
have some fun. And
It is
and we knew it would be
strange.
my dad's last duty station.
Yeah, that just like military kids kind of have like that clock in their head. Like I hear that all the time. They're like, "Yep, that was a year too long." And for any normal kid, that's like unheard of. Like they just live somewhere for 18
Mhm.
years. Maybe they move once if they have
Yes.
to. But I mean, for us,
Hmm.
it's just like, no, I need to get out of here. Like I'm done. I've done my time. I've done everything I've wanted to do. And I don't know if it gets stale or if they just are like so used to it. It is very strange. Um,
Yeah, and that's one of the things. Like my husband, like I said, he was born and raised in Chicago,
yeah.
so like that's kind of a thing with us and our relationship. Once in a while, is that so I moved here, and he was living in an apartment in the city, so we
Yeah.
lived there for like a year or two, and I was like, all right, let's go, we need something bigger. So then we moved to another section of the city, and we were in that apartment for 5 years, and I was like, all right, let's go. And then
Yeah.
we moved to another one, and we were there for 4 or 5 years, and yeah, again, like, let's
Yeah.
go.
Time to move
Like I said,
on.
like I know. And he's like, okay. And like, we own our house now, but even still, I'm like, all right, it's
What's
time to go.
next?
We gotta,
Yeah.
we need a new change. And it's crazy, because like my children, I have two children, 10 and 12
Yeah.
years old. And it's interesting to see, like, yeah, they're making their friends. And I didn't have that growing up. I didn't
Yeah.
have friends that I've known since I was 3 years old.
Hmm.
And and still talk to, or even like the schools, like the teachers in the schools and the administrators in the schools. As a parent, I've become very involved in the schools, and
Yeah.
I know a lot of them and formed relationships with. Like, it's a different feeling and a different thing that like it's new to me, but to them it's not. So
I mean, I think a big part of that as well is whenever you're a military kid and you're moving around, you don't have that community that's with you, watching you grow up with you, if that makes sense. Like you don't have those mentors, your teachers who have known you for so long. And it's kind of like extra parenting or extra resources for kids outside of their home. And if you're moving, like you move to a place and no one knows you. Your community is not used to you. Whereas if you live somewhere your entire life, you know, you feel at home. Everyone kind of knows each other, especially in a small town. So that must be interesting for you to say, like, I didn't have that, but to see my kids grow up and have that constant community, constant resources for them. I mean, it's just, I don't even think about having kids myself, but that's just something that it's going to be pretty cool to see and a benefit
and I
that
feel
I wasn't able to have.
I feel a little bit bad because like, I do want to move and we do want to move like out of the Chicagoland area. So they're going to be leaving. And for me, it's like, well, they'll make new friends. Like you just get up and you make new friends. But at the same time, these are also people that they've known since they were 3 or 4 years old and they've been friends with and they've gone to school with. And it makes me feel a little guilty, but I also know that it'll be good for them in the end, I hope. So, you know, exploring and trying new things. And but it's funny when you mentioned too, like with the teachers and the mentors. I had listened to one of your episodes. I forget who it was with, and someone was it in New Zealand or something? She was talking about trying to get a letter of recommendation from teachers. And I was like, oh yeah, because if you're moving and then you go to a new school, that nobody knows.
Yeah, they don't know you. Exactly.
So how can they recommend you for something? Yeah, and then your old teacher, you're like, hey, do you remember me? I'm one, you know, you've got kids coming in and out every couple of years, but like, do you remember me? And because not all teachers, you know, they want to make sure that they're recommending people that they know well. And and it's hard to like get that relationship. So I was just like, oh man, like for a lot of kids, especially now, like, I didn't think about that. So
when she brought that up, this is kind of, by the way, I should probably mention her name, but I hadn't thought about that either. And she was going to New Zealand where not very many military kids go in the first place. And she's going to a New Zealand school, not an American school, an American base. And you know, thank God they speak English there at least. That's good for her. You said you lived in England, so that's kind of interesting in that they speak English. Do you speak Japanese actually? I guess I should ask that.
Oh, I can understand a little bit. I lost a lot of it. So I guess when we were little, we lived there, we learned a lot of Japanese, obviously, because you know, I was born and then we left when I was around 4. So, and then we moved to the States, and my mother, her English, like I remember her taking ESL classes and stuff. And she said that she stopped speaking to us in Japanese because she needed to learn English. So she needed to practice English. And then we were about to start school. And you know, and this was like, you know, late 70s, early 80s. And she didn't want us to get confused in school. And then we went back and I started learning Japanese again. And but then when my dad retired me back to the States, and this is my fault, I didn't keep up with it. And of course you're not immersed in it. And
well, I mean, that's a lot to keep up with. Like
it is. And but it's sad because both my parents speak Japanese.
Gotcha.
And, like I never spoke to them in Japanese, but like I'll like I remember a little bit. I try to teach my kids a little bit. And like I am hoping, like I do want to like get back into like learning. So like speaking out to my cousins and stuff, that Google Translate is a lifesaver. So but so hopefully I can, you know, start to at least brush up a lot on it. But it is a goal. I hate that I let it go. So we'll see.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you're growing up in the States. It's not like you're using it every day. And if your parents stop speaking it to you, then there's no practice. And that's a huge challenge for your mother, by the way, you know, being a military spouse, having to move to the States and, you know, pick up some more English. So
with 5 kids, what that would have been
like. Yeah, with 5 kids, exactly. Oh my gosh.
That was but England, you're asked about England. So I loved England. I mean, my favorite places were actually England and Okinawa overseas because it's so different and the culture is different and you just get to experience a lot of different things. And like I was there in England, it was in 85 to 88, so it was like 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. And it was just so much fun. And I remember in school too, we had what's called host nation class, where you learn about the country that you're in that's hosting you. And we would learn, but like British English is not the same as American English.
Right. Some more like use in there and stuff.
Yes. And so, yeah, like we had vocabulary quizzes and
Oh,
language. And so you've got to, a biscuit in England is not what we have as a biscuit. It's what a cookie, chips, or French fries. So, Americans, a chip to us is a potato chip. And you say chip
Right.
over there, you're getting French fries. And but yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I mean, for actually our honeymoon, we did a little bit of time in England.
Oh.
So yeah, I was like, no, let's go to England. We actually did 2 weeks in Europe. So but England was one of our stops because I loved it so much. And then one of my sisters was living there at the time. So, and then my other sister was living in Germany because they were stationed in Germany. So I was just like, yep, let's go all around. Let's go.
Yeah.
But yeah, no.
Very well-traveled family.
I know yes. But yeah, I loved England. It was great.
This is a little more specific, but do you remember any of those transitions being particularly difficult for you? I mean, having to go to England and then back to the States or to Okinawa, or just, going back to, I think you said Scott Air Force Base for the second time, or one of those places for a second time. I know that was particularly difficult for me, just having to go back. And you would think that a lot of your friends would still be your friends, but that's not necessarily the case. And it's kind of like you're, kind of back where you started in some ways.
So I think the most difficult transition for us or move was retirement. Because like I said, I loved moving around. Like I would not have had it any other way. I just absolutely loved it and just made the best of everything. But retirement was extremely difficult. I was older, so 18, almost 19, and my dad retired to Arizona. His retirement base was Luke Air Force Base, but we lived in Mesa, and that was a good 50 to 60 miles away from the Air Force Base. So we moved to an area that had absolutely no military affiliation whatsoever. And then it was Arizona, like it was just not a very diverse area. So I think adjusting to that, because like in grad school, I studied institutionalization a little bit, and the military is very much an institution. And one of the things that I would look at is, yes, like how the military family becomes institutionalized within, when you leave, it's sometimes difficult to acclimate into that civilian lifestyle. And I think I've definitely had that issue. And part of that, I think, was because of the area that we moved to. There was no military community around.
Right.
And I stayed for 3 years. I was like, after that first year, I was ready to go. So I was like, all right, I'm going to finish school. I'll go to ASU. I'll finish school. And then my plan was actually to move back to Okinawa and, get a job with either Department of Defense or AFIS or MWR or the USO or something. But I wanted to get back to that military community. Yeah. And my little sister, even she talks about it too, just how it was a difficult transition for sure. And but then I ended up moving to Chicago. I don't recommend anyone follow my example in that, because I followed a boy.
Gotcha.
Like it was my chance to get out and I followed a boy. But yeah, but that was, I think for sure that retirement was, and I think even for my parents, that might have been difficult because my dad ended up, they're not in Arizona anymore. He ended up, the job he had in the Air Force became a civilian job, and he ended up doing that as a civilian after he retired from the Air Force. So he ended up going, like I said, to Florida, to an Air Force base there, and stayed within that. He was able to go back into the military community in some way. So, but yeah, retirement was definitely, that was the most difficult.
Yeah. I mean, somewhat similar. My dad retired when I was 18, so I was going into my senior year of high school, so I had to move for just my senior year to North Carolina. And I don't think you really recognize while you're a military kid how ingrained you are in military culture. Like whenever I was a military kid, I wasn't like always thinking about like how I didn't feel very I didn't identify very strongly with that. Like I didn't necessarily believe that I was super gung-ho about the military or about that identity, or that I carried that with a ton of pride. It was just kind of like something I happened to be. But after you move away from that and you're not surrounded by those people anymore, I think I started to realize how much of that made up who I was. And Yeah, whenever I was in the senior year of high school, leaving the military community, like you said, it's just totally different move, totally different transition. It's not something that you have done time and time again. It's, a whole new animal whenever you
Yeah.
have that familiarity taken away from you. So yeah, it's tough. I think you hit it on the head, and that makes a lot of sense as to why that was most difficult for you. I think I can relate to that as well in a lot of ways, as well as a lot of military kids. And it's not talked about that much. I think that everyone wants to talk about moving
No,
from
it's
place to
not.
place,
Yeah.
but no one wants to talk about leaving. And I think leaving while you're still in school is even worse. I mean, if your dad retires when you're in like your freshman year of high school or your sophomore year of high school, and you have to go through these really important developmental years where you then have to go into college and you don't have those friends or that community or the support that you once
Hmm.
had. Yeah. Anyways, let's talk about Kubasaki. That's
Yeah. I think yeah, no problem.
yeah,
I
let's
love
do it.
talking about
I'm very
Okinawan.
excited. Yeah.
Could do that all
Um,
day.
like I said, favorite place that I lived. You already said it's favorite place you lived as well as England. Could you just say once or when did you attend Kubasaki?
So I was there 92 to 94.
Hmm.
So I'm class of 94.
Gotcha. Like I said, I did not graduate there. I left after my junior year, so I spent 3 years there. Just so many memories. We were talking about the campus a little bit before the show, and just how a lot of it is still the same. It's of the senior hill. A lot of the buildings, 200s, 600s are still there. What was your favorite part about just Kubi? Just the school? Was it the people? Was it, the location, the teachers? What was it?
I don't know. It was, I often wonder sometimes because I was an Air Force brat, like what the
Yeah.
difference between Kadena High School would have been with
Hmm.
Kubasaki High School, because we were friends with kids from Kadena.
Right.
And it's funny because like the Marine Corps kids, they will, like there's this whole joke about like, oh, Air Force, they're brats, like they're really like
Yeah.
they're stuck up or something. And
That still
and of course
exists,
my
but
dad, yes, and of course my dad had his jokes on the Marines. And so
Mhm.
like I started thinking like, oh, is there a difference? And then yeah, like the buildings itself, like the infrastructure, like it was a
Yeah.
little different, and the bases were a little bit different, but it was still fun. Like I think that
Mhm.
like there were still always things to do, and Dodd's teachers, so it was Dodd's when I was growing. I think you call it
Right.
Dodea.
So
Like I had
yeah.
to Google that because I was like, what the heck is he talking? What is Dodea? And apparently it
Same thing,
went
yeah.
from Dodd's, yeah, to Dodea. So with the
Mhm.
Dodd school, it everybody there has something in common. You're a military child
Right.
growing up in the military. And I think a lot of Dodd's teachers understand that. So like with how they treat the kids and stuff and the admin and everything. And
Right.
that's always really nice. But it was like on Okinawa, like you all have that one thing in common. You're all military kids growing up on an island,
Yeah.
and I think that it was so great to, because I did go to in Scott Air Force Base, I went to a school in a small town, and so it was probably mostly civilian, but then the Air Force kids went to that school too, so it was a mix, but it was still a civilian school. And I
Mhm.
think with the Dodd school, it was just nice because you had that thing in common of being a military child on an island. Everybody knew everybody talked to everybody. It's still a high
Right.
school, you got your teenage drama, you got your sports and everything, but in the end I think being a military child on an island going to Kubasaki, um everybody hung out with everybody. Like, so you got the skaters, the smokers, the athletes, the preps, like
Mhm.
we all hung out. Like we're all
Yeah.
at Sunset Beach hanging out at the wall, in
Mhm.
the summer or something, or senior skip day, everybody, or other skip days,
Yeah.
everybody's still just like hanging out, going to the seawall, going to I think it was gate 4, the park out there, like everybody's still
Yeah.
hanging out. And I thought that that was just great. You still have your cliques and everything, but
Yeah.
everybody's still talking to each other and everybody's still hanging out because there was something more important than, if you smoked or
Mhm.
if you played sports or something. You're all still just military kids living on this island attending this
Yeah.
school. And I think that was probably one of my favorite things about attending Kubasaki.
Yeah, I would agree. There was a lot more. I think the friend groups were just much more intertwined in that way. Like there was a lot of, you could be a part of all these different cliques or groups, and that was just normal. Like you didn't have to be defined by one group of people because there was the
Right.
bigger category that everyone was a part of. So that is what makes it very special. And you feel that when you're just at school and you just kind of look around and whether you know their names, you might not necessarily know their names, but you've just seen everyone's faces before. You're just really familiar with like the atmosphere and everyone around you. It's a really special feeling just walking through those hallways that I definitely miss. So you said you lived on Camp Foster. What did you like just about the island life? I mean, you mentioned a few specifics with Sunset Beach and, Gate 4. Was there anything else that you just were like, you have a really strong connection to on the island?
Uh, I and like I said, my family was there,
Yeah.
so we went and saw them at least once a week. We'd have them over, holidays and stuff, and we'd
Yeah.
go over and we'd get otoshidama for the New Year's, and on Thanksgiving we'd have them over, and they, my mom always made like American style food, but also Japanese food.
Yeah.
And my family there had never had like turkey with cranberry and stuffing.
Yeah.
So that was always fun. And then I mean, yeah, I was an older teenager, so we went to the clubs and to the bars
Yeah.
outside Gate 2 Street, and I was underage. So I don't know how much of that is there now, but this was
It's all still there.
early
Yeah, it hasn't
90s.
changed.
Okay.
Either.
Because the last couple of times I revisited, I wasn't able to get to Gate 2 Street. But yeah, so we did all that. But I mean, by far, and my sister was telling me that she was like, the one thing I remember you always did, Jen, was you were always at the beach. I loved the beach. I would go there I would walk there from, to Sunset Beach from the Foster Towers if I had to.
Yeah.
I love just hanging out at the beach. And I remember that first like couple months we moved there, and I went to the beach almost every day, and I got so sunburned, but I would still go back to the beach.
Yeah.
Like my mom was like, well, at least wear this jacket and cover up. And I was like, okay, because I just got to get to the beach. I just love just sitting there, hanging out there. And yeah, the beach was by far or even like traveling along, driving along the coastline and just stopping or doing the bonfires at night at the beach. I love that island life. And
Yeah. And
being near the water.
there's so many beaches that are kind of secluded and you can have like your own
Yes.
little private space, which is really neat. You don't get that in a lot of especially not like where you live, like that's totally unheard of. We just have like your own little beach that you can go to or a spot that only you or your friends know about. That's really cool. And I mean, like you said, just the proximity of the high school to the beach is kind of like unbelievable, where you have Araha just right outside of Camp Foster. You can just walk right across the street. I
I
remember
love
the
it.
cross country team would run down there and come back. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Which I mean, I would never want to do
See,
that.
I would have
but
stayed.
it's all uphill on the way back. So, um, yeah, but just the fact that you're able to do that and that's just kind of like the life that you're growing up in is just really neat. And there's just no words. You just kind of have to experience it and you have to go to the island and you just have to see the scenery and the views and the lifestyle. It's really special. And that's why whenever I hear anyone like, oh, I'm moving to Japan or moving to Okinawa, like I did, I had mixed feelings about it. I was like, well, is this really what I want? I don't speak the language. I'm gonna be so far away from home, the time zones, I'm leaving so many people behind. But once you get there and you get acclimated, it's like, no, this is gonna be okay. I'm gonna be fine.
Well, yeah, and then you've got like, I'm like, my husband was asking me something about like, oh, was it east or west or north or south because he came with us last time we visited. I was like,
Mhm.
well, I always think Pacific Ocean is on one side,
Yeah.
China Sea is on the other side. So which side were we looking at?
Yeah.
I was like, so, and he's like, oh, I was like, yeah. So, that's how I figure out direction is, am I looking at the East China Sea or am I looking at the Pacific Ocean? So it's
Yeah.
definitely unique. It's very unique. And yeah, I feel so privileged to have been able to experience it all.
Right. And it's such a small place. I mean, you can't drive for more than like an hour north or an hour and a half without, running out of road. Like it just ends. So, from someone, I lived in, North Carolina a lot, or, just anywhere in the South where you just have like a lot of land and you can just drive forever, it seems like. And it's just, it's not the case when you get to Okinawa. Very small, everything there is small. The cars, the roads, it's different.
Parking spaces, I loved it.
The soft drink cups, no refills. You just get this little itty bitty thing. I'm like, come on. That might be a downside. The McDonald's there, I do think is better. Not a huge McDonald's person, but just the
No,
fast food in
without
general.
a doubt.
Yeah, exactly. definitely better. Was there any other restaurants that or any restaurants that you particularly liked? Anything
Like my
specific?
mom worked at a restaurant.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was called. I remember, like, I can remember how to get there. Like, and it was kind
Yeah.
of up on a hill. Like, I'm like, I can remember how to get there. And
Yeah.
and it was actually a pretty good restaurant.
Hmm.
And she was a cook in the back. And I remember when she first started working there, I went with a friend of mine. He was an Air Force GI, and him and I had lunch there, and we didn't we were like, because you don't tip there, and we were just like,
Right.
should we tip? Like, I feel weird not tipping, like not leaving something.
It's
Like,
insulting.
and he was like, I know, but I was just like, let's just act like we left it, like hide it somewhere so that it seems like it fell out of my purse or something. But of course they knew, because they knew who I was. And my
Yeah.
mom came home and she asked me about it, and she just started laughing. I was like, they weren't like offended, were they? She was like, no, they just laughed because you're so American. I was like, yeah, I know. But no, there was right outside so Pyramids nightclub do you know if that was still there outside of Gate 2
I'm not
Street?
sure about
I
that
think it
one.
had closed down.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't know it, then it's probably closed down now. But that was like the main club back in the day.
Okay.
And there was a taco stand right next to it.
Oh.
And so they had like the best yakiniku ever. And so after a few hours in the club, we would go stop there and get some, like I would get the yakiniku with the white rice, and they even knew who I was. And apparently I was very selfish with it, because I had an ex-boyfriend tell me one time that he had asked if he could have some, and I was like, no, get your own. And I was just like, it's good. Like, but yeah, I still remember that place. And then of course the food stands, the bento stands on the side of the road. Those were delicious. Like my sister was like, no, we got to get yakitori when we went back to visit. And it's sad because they don't have as many as they used to have. Yeah. But those are still good. And then of course the egg salad sandwiches at the convenience stores. Yeah. Like
Family Mart.
That was one of the first things I got. Yeah. I was like, my husband was like, you're going to get egg salad at a convenience store. I was like, no, it's not like 7-Eleven, trust me.
Yeah, you don't understand. Exactly. That's something I have to talk about to a lot of people, is like the convenience stores there, the quality of food is amazing. Like it's really hard to believe. Like just the quality.
You're not going to get sick.
Get.
It's so good.
Exactly.
Yes,
For like $5
so
too.
good.
500 yen. You're just like, wow, that was my dinner. Okay. That works.
Yep.
It's
so good.
It's awesome. I loved it. I would just be there all the time at the convenience stores getting meals. Geez, and you said you revisited. So what were some of the things that changed about the island? Was there anything that was the same? Were you disappointed in any way going back?
First time I went with my daughter, and she was about 5. And it was a big family trip, like my sisters and my brother and my parents, we all went. And it was very nostalgic. So as soon as I got off the airplane and we took the monorail, they didn't have the monorail when I lived there, but we got on and we took the monorail to Naha, because my grandparents' house was in Naha, or is in Naha. And just like seeing things, it was very nostalgic for me. There was a lot that hadn't changed, but then a lot that did change. And then, and we generally stayed in Naha. So then the second time, it was a big family trip again. And this time I took my husband and both my kids. And again, it was a bit nostalgic. We stayed at a hotel on Sunset Beach in American Village. Yeah. And that had changed, because like I had a picture of me and a few friends on one of the walls by the canal that's there, and like none of the buildings were there. So I took another picture just to show, like, to see the difference. And it was like because there's so much more buildings. And then another thing I noticed, like a lot of the military community, I didn't see as many GIs as I saw, when I was there in the 90s. And then it was like the beach even looked weird, like the water on Sunset Beach. I felt like it wasn't as much water. It was kind of strange, but it was still beautiful. Yeah. And but it was harder to find, like, I feel like old traditional things. Like I was looking for kokeshi dolls, and it was difficult to find those. And then my sister took us on Kadena Air Base, and the BX there was humongous.
Oh yeah, that's a huge exchange.
Like how big that BX was.
Yeah.
Yes, I was just like, oh my gosh.
It's the two floors as the escalators.
Yeah. Like this is crazy. Yes, I was just like, it's like a mall or something. Yeah, and then there's like this huge mall there now too. I think near Camp Foster that wasn't there before. And I was like, I need like 2 or 3 days to go through this thing. And then we didn't get on Camp Foster. We didn't have time, but we did drive by on our way back to Naha. And I'm like, oh, look, that's where I was born. You know, my sister like, oh yeah, that's where we were born. But it's the old hospital that
Camp
like,
Lester Hospital.
Down. Yes,
yeah,
it's the old one that closed
I've
down.
been in there
like,
actually.
oh.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. So we're like, oh my gosh, we were born there. Like, little things, it was just funny. And then like what we could see on Camp Foster, and I was like, why does it looks a little different? And or like the barracks, I was like, oh yeah, I knew some people who lived in these barracks. And there was a lot too, like something I noticed in Naha was like, it was sad the Makishi meat market had closed down. It's a lot of like newer shops and things. It's very it became, you know, it's modernized now. And then there's a lot of tourists. And I don't remember as many tourists as when we lived there in the 90s, but now there's just a ton of tourists there. But like I still feel safe there. And like we went out, my cousin took us out drinking and karaoke in Naha, and it was past midnight, and I was like, I got to get back to the kids, you know, my mom was watching the kids, so I told my husband, you have fun and I'm gonna go back to the hotel. He's like, oh, you're gonna walk there? I was like, yeah. Like past midnight, who cares? It's in the city. I was like, this isn't Chicago. Like, we're fine. And he's like, all right. So like, there's still like, I still felt safe, but so like a lot of things changed, but there were still some things that were still the same and very familiar. So
that's something I've talked about before as well, is just how safe you feel in a foreign country almost immediately. I don't know what it is about the place, but you just feel very comfortable just like walking around. I think it's just because everyone you meet really seems so friendly. I mean, of course, there's only like a bad experience or two, but everyone is just very friendly, and you just feel really welcome there. And you know, you can just, it makes you want to treat the place with respect as well, just the island and the people and the community.
I agree.
I think there's a very big mutual understanding between, you know, the locals and the Americans, which I'm very thankful for. It's a great place to live. Not enough can be said about it. Did you guys hang out a lot at the A&Ws? Because there's a lot of A&Ws there, and we never were there, and I've seen some pictures of some past Okinawan or Kubasaki students at the A&Ws, and it's just very strange why there's so many A&Ws in Okinawa. I've never got an answer why.
Oh, I feel like I had looked it up once and I don't remember why, but like I don't remember hanging out a lot at A&W.
Why are they
it was
there?
mostly like I don't know, like we would hang out at the Burger King on Camp Foster.
Sure, yeah.
And it was a huge deal, like if a different restaurant
still is,
up.
yeah.
I think Popeyes opened up on, and that was
very
like
popular.
Huge. But we mostly hung out, like at the food court at the Foster PX, or like I said, Sunset Beach. But or like certain little arcades or the Seawall or something. But like the A&W, and even now there's still a lot of A&W.
They're still there.
They're
always empty.
It probably to do with like post World War II. And like things, with more American
drive-in American
westernized stuff with. Yes, like that's how taco rice, post World War II, taco rice, like combined the two, Japanese and American food. So, but I don't know, but I don't remember hanging out. Like, I don't even think I ever ate at the A&W.
Oh, I didn't either. No,
we lived there, like not once. So that's kind of funny.
I don't know. I'm still looking.
I don't think I've ever eaten there, and there's so many. We have to Google that when we're done.
That's probably a quick answer for me. Let's go ahead and get into your podcast. I would love to talk about this, the Mixed Dandelions podcast. It's gonna be launching in April. It's a big undertaking for a podcast. I definitely know that it's not easy.
It is.
So just tell me your mindset right now. Where are you with things, and just where are you with all this?
Oh like you said, it is a big undertaking. And I had actually like considered a couple times, like, okay, I'm done. Like, this is just, it's too much, especially since I'm not getting paid for this. Like,
definitely not.
I was like, nope, I've already started. I've already like bought the microphone.
Yeah.
Right. So I was just like, no. And but like it started, I, like a lot of people with the pandemic, they had to isolate and you're getting bored. You can't go out and do stuff. And my kids are, 5th and 7th grade. So hanging out with mom is just not as much fun as it was when you're 4 or 5 years old, And so I was getting bored, and then add middle age to that. And so like I work, but I have summers off because I work in a school. So I just started looking, and I have a master's in sociology. So once in a while, I like to read up on research, and I like qualitative research. And luckily there's more things about the mixed race experience. There's more research coming out about that. And then even the military child experience, there's slowly but surely more things coming out about that. There's more podcasts about that, and I found a few. I found yours. I found the military brat podcast.
Yes, I've had her on the show before.
One. Yes, I saw that.
She hasn't podcasted in a while, but I wish she would start again. She was really good.
Yeah, it was fun to, like I said, and it's very nostalgic to hear that, and it's nice too, because I live in this, right outside of Chicago. So for the past 20 some odd years, like I haven't had that. I haven't had people to talk to about that. I don't have that in common with people. And so it's been a little bit of a struggle. And then I was like, well, what about the two together? Like that mixed race experience within that military lifestyle. I found one research person who looked at that, and it was her dissertation. And so I was like, that's interesting. So
I'm surprised you even found one, to be honest.
It was difficult.
Specific. Yeah.
And it took a while, yes. And like I said, though, like, because you always hear more about, the service member, which, yes, definitely research needs to be done on that. And then you start hearing more about the families and the spouses. And
spouses.
Slowly but surely now there's more about the child. And I feel like our experiences matter. Our experience should be validated because, yes, we too had to move around, and we had to adjust, and we had to deal with certain struggles. And then, like I said, with retirement and that mixed race experience, and I did a storytelling event with a former professor of mine, and I just started thinking about it all. And I was just like, like it is different, at least for me, when I was in the military and with the military community, because there are a lot of interracial families within that military. So race isn't as big of an issue, I feel like, as far as like growing up. For me, it was normal. But then once we got out of that military community, I was treated differently. My mixed race was perceived differently. Gotcha. And I just, and experiences, and I want to talk about that. I want them to share their stories. And oops, my internet connection is unstable.
I lost you for just a second, but we're good now. Yeah.
But and then too, like, sorry.
No, you can.
But so I want people just to like learn and grow and just realize, as a mixed race person, we're not all confused and struggling on our identity. Like as an adult, I've realized it's more other people are confused and struggling with that. And then as the military brat, again, it's not all like hardship and struggles. Some of us liked that. Some of us learned, there were a lot of lessons to be learned from growing up in that kind of a lifestyle. And so just, to educate and learn and to share those stories. And then I thought, hey, let's do a podcast. Why not?
Absolutely.
I think I lost you now. I think it's the snow.
You're good? Yeah, blame it on the snow. 100%.
Okay, now we're good.
Yeah, I think we're good now.
The snow.
Yeah, but it sounds like a great project, and a great, it's always good whenever you have a real concise, just like goal and what you're trying to do. And that's always better because you can more efficiently reach your community or your audience, I should say. So I think you have really good target, and it's really going to be really cool to see it just grow. Like, I'm just looking forward to it, and I'm wishing you the best.
So,
obviously, I mean, I'm not sure how much I can help, but if there's anything I can do, obviously, after sharing this, I would love to, be of any assistance, just with the podcasting.
Well, I mean, if you know anybody who thinks they might have a story to tell, or, I mean, it's just, and I want to talk to more than just military brats. I want to talk to spouses and service members, active duty vets, APHIS employees, just anybody who can maybe speak to that. And because too, like the military has their military service members are more prone to have an interracial relationship than their civilian counterparts. And So I think that's not looked at enough. So
Hmm.
just wanted to learn and share, and we'll see where the journey takes us.
Well, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a really cool podcast, and
Thank
can't wait to
you.
see all of the content you have coming out. Is there anything you're concerned about with the podcast as of right now? Anything that's pretty daunting?
Trying to find guests and then
Yeah.
schedule that time. Um,
Yeah.
that's like I've reached out to some people and they're like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's not for us. I think too, just talking about race can be a little
Yeah.
touchy, but like it's not meant to be offensive to anybody and it's not meant
Hmm.
to exclude anybody. I really, like I said, I just want people to share. Everybody's
Hmm.
unique and there's value in their identity and their experiences. And so it's really just, I don't want to be offensive. I don't want people to think this is an overall generalization of the population. I just want
Hmm.
people to be able to share their own experiences,
Absolutely.
and there's
Hmm.
something positive about being, multicultural and multi-ethnic and multiracial. And I think people can learn a lot from that. So hopefully, like I
Yeah.
said, we'll see where the journey takes us and hopefully it's going to be all good vibes and yeah.
Yeah, reaching out to guests is not easy all the time. No, I would definitely recommend starting with some people just kind of get off the ground.
That's what I
I've
did.
yeah, I relied on a lot of my friends to just kind of get me started. I'm very thankful for them because
Mhm.
it takes a lot to get it going and just to get into routine with the editing and recording and just kind of getting yourself
Yes.
into it. But it does get easier after you make a few and you
Okay,
start
that's
getting into
good.
a rhythm. It really does get easier. Like I can, I'm just you get into
Something to look
just the
forward to
routine.
then.
Yeah, something to look forward to. I would say it does take a while though. It's work, but and you're doing it for the right reasons, which helps too. I think it took me a little bit to realize, exactly what I was doing it for. Because at first it was just kind of like fun. I'm just gonna share my stories, goof around on the internet. It'll be great. But you only have so many stories to tell, so I had to kind of learn how to spread awareness to certain things, bring out different types of guests, and just share the military brat experience with whoever wants to listen.
I
But
think you've done a great job at that. Like
I
it's
appreciate that.
like I said, like when I first listened, like I don't listen to all, I'll be honest, I don't listen to all your episodes because some of them
I don't
don't
either.
relate to me. Yeah. So but like it's very nostalgic. And then you
Mhm.
do have, like, I've seen that you've had people from like the military, was it the Military Child Museum? And you've had like
Right. Mhm.
admins from the schools. So you've got like a really good, diverse, eclectic kind of feel to your podcast. So I think that's
Yeah.
really good.
And sometimes you're just going to run into guests on accident. Like you reached out to me, and that was fantastic. I'm very
Yeah,
thankful for it. It's been a great episode. I really appreciate it.
no problem. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yes.
It's been fun
I'm
talking.
I'm sure we could do it again sometime, maybe after your podcast, after a few
Absolutely.
months in, and we can have another conversation about podcasting and maybe some of your guests you added to that point. I would love to do that. But until then, I
Yeah.
would like to thank everyone for watching. Make sure to subscribe and make sure to check out the Mixed Dandelions podcast. I'll tag the Instagram, and then as you get going, I'll make sure to add the links and everything into this episode description
Great.
so people can go and
Thank
check it
you.
out. So yeah, thank you again, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you.